Hey everyone, Alina Mendoza here. Welcome to another YouTube video. I have been meaning to record this video for a while and a lot of other videos, but I am going to be leaving for Morocco in 2 days, and Morocco is a very big part of my life, and so I have been wanting to record a video kind of about the backstory of Morocco and all things Morocco and why it's a big part of my life and how that is kind of how it's still a part of my life. I'm still going there. I've been going since 2016, and as a traveler and a photographer, I really enjoy going over there. So there is a lot more to it than that. I think that's why I'm like laughing at myself, is because I'm like, okay, it's not just that, like there's a lot. So I am just going to dive in. I have been meaning to record just some core videos about myself, about photography, my travel experience. I haven't gotten to it yet. So I feel like I'm a little bit like jumping ahead, because in order to get to the Morocco part of my life, we have to go over the travel part of my life, and we have to go over the photography part of my life. But we're not gonna do that. So today we are just gonna talk about Morocco and what took me there and why I keep going back. So I quit my job in 2016. At this time, I was still working in real estate. I've been working in real estate for 17 years. And at the time, I was also pursuing photography very heavily. I started photography, mostly creative portraits. And then as I continued to travel, I really had a love for travel. So I shifted more into wanting to create travel photography, landscapes, hotels, people, portraits of people while I was traveling. So that shifted probably in like 2015. I took a few trips to kind of like cater towards that. I didn't take them specifically for photography, but it just ended up being that I traveled a lot in 2015. And so a lot of my content ended up being more travel focused. So 2015, I decided, I was like, I really want to travel and just take photos for an extended period of time. And so I really uprooted my life to travel and make that a priority in my life. And so, you know, I had been planning this. I told my boss in 2015, so it was very like, well, it wasn't very well planned, but the actual, you know, I didn't just get up and leave. It's something that I had been planning on doing since 2015 and then actually did in 2016. So, you know, I gave everybody like 6 months notice. I moved out of my apartment. I wanted to really travel like a traveler. I wanted to just have my camera equipment, a few basic things, and go travel. So Morocco was the first destination, and I primarily wanted to go there because it looked like a place that was still, you know, a place that the architecture was very old, and so a place you could go to and take photos and it would look the same as it did hundreds of years ago. So that's what really pulled me to Morocco, the architecture mostly, and then, you know, that vibe of, you know, it just being very old and being able to take photos like that. So 2016, I went for 3 weeks and I traveled by myself the entire time. I went to Marrakesh for a few days. That was very overwhelming at first. I can share more about that, but as a single traveler, nothing bad happened. It just is like, you know, it was just overwhelming. I felt like I was looking at the ground a lot, just trying to like avoid like so many people coming at me. And then I was also very jet lagged. So I I didn't fully have the opportunity to experience Marrakesh the way I would have wanted to, and since then have experienced Marrakesh in a very like beautiful way. But as a first destination and coming from such a, you know, like I just packed up my apartment, put things in storage, left my job, it was a very overwhelming thing. So I think a lot of my time in Marrakesh was like processing that, or just coming off of making this big change in my life. And at the same time though, it was just like so beautiful. Like I had this really beautiful experience when I first got there, where I was like been traveling for like 48 hours. I had like a 24-hour layover in Russia. You know, it was that time of the month, like I was hot, I was just carrying my bags, I was going through the Medina, some guys like, you know, taking me all kinds of places. My accommodations got changed at the last minute because the place I was supposed to stay was under construction and it wasn't finished, so they sent me to another place. And I was like, I don't even know where I'm staying, like, you know. And, you know, then we're, you know, in these dusty Medinas and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like what am I doing? And the moment they opened the doors, it was just like a wooden door, you know, in the Medina, and the doors open and there was this like scent that I had never smelled before, or I feel like I now have recognized it in other places, and I think it is actually an older memory or a scent I have experienced from maybe even when I was a child. But as soon as I walked in, there was just this smell of like orange blossom oil. And at the time, I didn't even know what it was. And so I asked them and found out that it was orange blossom. And it just like kind of like all washed over me. So I had this like almost kind of like stressful, rushed feeling when I got there, which any travel, you know, that you do is kind of like that. But especially for me, as I mentioned, making these big decisions to change my life, I think I felt that even more. And so I literally just like, all my bags just like dropped off of me. I had that scent. And so now I love that scent. I have it everywhere in my house. Like, I spent probably like, I now like bring those products back home with me, so that way like I can just smell that all the time, because it really reminds me of that time in my life of like making a really big decision and a really big change, and at the time not knowing how everything would come together or what that would look like. And now everything has come together and I know what that looks like now. That has taken about 6 years. I'm sure the journey is not done yet, but at the time, and a few, probably in the middle, probably about 2 years after that, it was a little bit scary, because I was like, oh wow, I quit my job, I came back home, I didn't have any money. And I did that on purpose though. I specifically did not want to make it easy for me to come back to, you know, to come back to a life that I didn't want to just take a vacation. I really wanted to have like a different experience. I wanted to go on a one-way ticket, and I wasn't sure how long I would stay out traveling, and I only ended up traveling for about 2 months. But okay, anyways, that is a side note. I'm gonna talk more about that and kind of the in-between moments, but this video is not that. So back to Morocco. I planned a desert trip there in 2016. So after Marrakesh for a few days, I went to the desert, had a really beautiful experience there. It was windy. There was a full-on sandstorm, and like I was the only person that still wanted to stay in the camp. And I mean, now that I think about it, like all those poor guys like still working just like in the middle of the desert, and this one American that doesn't want to stay in the hotel but wants to stay in the middle of the desert in a sandstorm. So thank you. And so I did that, had a really beautiful experience, you know, in the Sahara Desert, watching the sunrise. It was just like a really beautiful moment. And at that moment, that's like, it like made everything worth it, you know? And I think back to that moment a lot. of just having this like moment of clarity. Like sometimes we do really scary things and we don't know how things are going to work out, but just appreciating, like, it just allowed me to be really present. And it's like, wow, Alina, like you did a big thing and you accomplished it. Like, you wanted to travel and you wanted to take photos, and so that was kind of the beginning of that journey. And so that was like a really like pivotal moment for me just in my own growth, because I think back anytime I'm scared to do something, anytime I'm afraid to take a risk, I think back to those moments, because it's like you've been in a really scary place before and you didn't know how everything was going to turn out, and things just work out, you know, and they don't look exactly the way that you think they're gonna turn out. You know, you don't think you're gonna run out of money. You think you might get more photo gigs when you're traveling and you'll be able to stay out there longer than 2 months. That didn't happen, but a lot of other beautiful things and people came into my life, all because of this decision to go to Morocco in 2016. So, all worth it. I'm gonna go a little bit quick, or else this video is just gonna be way too long. After that, I went back to Marrakesh for 2 more nights. I met up with my friends Majestic Disorder, who were not friends at the time. We followed each other on Instagram before the trip, and they sent me some recommendations, and then we ended up being in Marrakesh at the exact same time, staying at the exact same hotel because they recommended a hotel, I booked it, and they happened to be there at the same time. I will do another video about Majestic Disorder. I feel like all my videos are like, here's a video about all the videos I'm going to create in the future. Anyways, met up with Majestic Disorder at Riyadh Jardin Secret in Marrakesh. Really beautiful place. I think I was there for 2 nights, and that was another really amazing moment and also a turning point in my life, because I ended up traveling with Majestic Disorder on a few trips to do photography. Traveled to Ecuador and Oahu with them, and yeah, they've been really great friends, and they do really amazing work and tell stories about creatives. And now they offer also trips to Morocco as well. So anyways, met up with them in Marrakesh, not planned, but timing, the universe, right? And after that, I had booked some time to spend in Essaouira for 2 nights, I think. That was it. Did not know at the time that I booked to stay there while the Ganawa Music Festival was going on. So again, timing, universe. It's a huge music festival. I had no idea, and I booked my trip to go while that was happening. And then also Majestic Disorder was going there too, and that also was not planned. So I met up with them and had a really cool afternoon with them while they were doing a photo shoot in Essaouira. So went to Essaouira. I loved Essaouira. Now that I think back on it, I wish I would have stayed longer at that time. But I've always thought of myself as a spontaneous person, but I think I really do appreciate structure. And so I did probably book a little bit too much in advance. Not that I regret anything, but I stayed in Essaouira 2 nights, and then I left because I had a homestay to do in a town called Amintanut, and it was staying with a family for a week, and you cook, you learn how to make tagine, and you learn how to make couscous, and just a lot of other activities, traditional, cultural, day-to-day, you know, Moroccan life in a very small village. So that was a really great experience. I stayed there for 5 days maybe. And then after that, I went back to Essaouira, I think for 1 or 2 more nights, and then went to Fez. And I was only in Fez for 1 night. and then stayed in Shashawan for a few nights, maybe 3 nights, I think. And then after that, I was in Casablanca, and then I flew out of Casablanca to go to Portugal, which I love Portugal too. I'll talk more about Portugal and the rest of my travels, but that was my experience in Morocco for 3 weeks. I met really incredible people, just strangers. There's such a hospitable culture, and so people will welcome you into their home and always have tea for you, and it was really lovely to experience that. I don't think I had a bad experience at all when I was there, and you know, I always wanted to go back. I loved Essaouira, and so I always wanted to go back to Essaouira and spend more time there. It then took me 3 years to get back to Morocco. I went back to Morocco in 2019. At the end of 2019, I came back home. I went through this kind of dark period for a while. Then I went through this really transformative period, as these things happen, with a lot of self-growth involved. And then I started working back in real estate, which was meant to be only really like a temporary thing. My old boss at the time, he called me and he was just like, I really need your help. Like, you know. And so I was like, okay, I'll work with you for a few months, which I'm still working there now. So in the beginning of 2019, I was able to get my own place, my first place ever, without a roommate. And it was just a small studio, 300 square feet. But as soon as I got that place, I always knew that as soon as I would have a place of my own, I would fill it with things that I love from my travels, you know? And so it's like, whoa, and now I'm like in a different place and I'm like, whoa, I have all these rugs and I have these things for my travels. Like, it's crazy. It's not crazy. It's just, I mean, it is crazy. It's really cool. And that was the beginning of 2019, and I was like, I just want to fill my stuff with things from Morocco. And so I was like looking at things from Morocco, and you know, I was starting to spend money on things, mostly vintage, but still, like, there was a moment and I was like, gosh, if I'm spending X amount of dollars on something that is Moroccan, I should probably just book a flight to Morocco and go buy things over there, right? Like, it'll be a lot cheaper, plus I get a trip out of it. So the end of 2019, I booked a 1-week trip to Morocco. I don't know why I didn't do 2 weeks. That's a little bit bizarre. It's very unlike me to only go for a week. Maybe it was a financial thing at the time. But I specifically wanted to just go back to Marrakesh to go shopping. I wanted to, and of course, experience Marrakesh and be there for a long time. I love Marrakesh. I mean, I have like these Marrakesh posters in my house. I love Marrakesh, and I really wanted the opportunity to really kind of do Marrakesh right and spend enough time there to really like soak it all in without being overwhelmed. I didn't want that feeling, you know? And I know Marrakesh has a lot to offer, and so I really wanted to give Marrakesh an opportunity for me to just fall in love with Marrakesh even more, which I did. So went to Marrakesh. I stayed at the Riad I was supposed to stay at in 2016. That was a full-on, full circle moment. I didn't even mean to have this magazine here. It's like that worked out perfectly because it was literally right in front of me. A few months before that, Sweet Paul from Sweet Paul magazine reached out, and he basically offered, he was like, hey, he's like, if you want to create any content for my magazine, paid, like, you can take photos and do a travel story, and you can kind of do whatever you want, you know? And I was like, whoa, okay. So that came up at that time too, and so I was able to also use it as like a work trip and a personal trip where I was shopping, and then also just like enjoying my time over there, and then also being able to like document it and photograph the places that I stayed at and write about it, which is like something I'd been wanting to do for a really long time. I had always done photography and I always write, but that was like a really cool moment. And now it's here in print forever. So went to Marrakesh, did that. Oh, but I photographed the place that I stayed at that first, where I was supposed to stay at that first time. So that was really amazing because this riad is owned by a Belgian couple and they have traveled all over the world. And so they're giving me a tour of this riad, which is essentially, it was their house at one point before they turned it into a riad, but it really has that feeling of a home. And so there's all these artifacts and things from different countries, or just that have stories, personal items like family heirlooms, that is mixed throughout the house or the riad, you know, with all of these things from their travels to Iran, and a lot of things, rooms inspired by different places and from their travel experiences, which is like how I like to create my home. It's influenced by my travel experience, which Morocco mostly, but so I did that, and then I went shopping. I bought rugs, I bought blankets, I bought poofs. It was really fun to go to the, like, I can't even remember what it's called, but it's like a really local market, and you have to dig to find really good stuff. And not to find really good stuff, but it's just fun to like dig to find things, you know? So I went with a few guests from the riad, and we all had things that we wanted to buy. So we all helped each other negotiate, you know. That's like part, like you don't just go in there and like pay a price. Like part of the game is like they want you to negotiate, like to go back and forth and you know, play that game with them a little bit. So, you know, I bought a few rugs, I bought a few blankets, and you know, I even used like some of my real estate lingo. Like when I was like, there was this blanket that I wanted, and we kept going back and forth on the numbers, back and forth. Couldn't come to an agreement. So finally I just started walking out. I was walking down the stairs. I just said a number. I was like, best and final. That's my best and final offer. And he took it. So I got my blanket or my rug or whatever it was. But so that was Marrakesh. Oh my gosh. This is gonna be long. Okay, I think I'm gonna have to split this into a few videos.